There are so many of us men who are living our lives aiming for impossible standards that we may never hit. I know because I'm one of those men, and I believe that many of us are operating this way without even knowing it. I was driving home from Compass recently with Sean Barry and having a conversation with him, and I turned over to him. I said, "Hey, Sean, man, how many men do you know who are just a good, solid man, who's a good father, a really, really good husband, who shows up for his community, whose work gives back and makes this world a better place? How many men do you know who also are financially stable and mentally and physically fit? Men who are able to send some money home to their parents and help the people around them. Men who are just overall generous with their time, with their energy, with their resources. How many guys do you know hit all these boxes?" And we sat there in silence for a couple of minutes, just thinking to ourselves. You could see that we were thinking about, we were going through the Rolodex of every single man that we know. How many men hit every single one of those targets? And after about 2 minutes, Sean spoke up and he said, I think I know one man. And he told me about this man and why he thinks this man hit those marks for him. And I thought to myself, I couldn't come up with one. I couldn't come up with one single man who hit every single one of those marks. And the reason why this was important is because in my mind, these are the marks that I'm trying to hit every single day of my life. I'm pushing myself, I'm challenging myself to be better in every single one of these areas because I care about that. I care about being a man who has a high standard, who's high performance. And yet at the same time, I see myself observing myself and believing that I'm falling short of these. Because yes, I'm just like every other man. I'm not perfect and I definitely have my days. But when I take the full scan of myself, I can look at multiple parts of this and say, I'm not hitting the mark there. I don't feel satisfied with this. Now, on one hand, I love that. I don't ever want to be satisfied with myself. I don't ever want to sit back and say, you know what? Good enough. I'm done. I don't have to endeavor to be any more than I already am. I love having ambitions that are high. I love having targets to chase and pursue that maybe I'll never actually reach, but that motivate me, inspire me to keep pushing every single day. But on the same side or the other side of the coin, I need to realize that there's an opportunity for me to have grace with myself too. Just like you, I can beat myself up really hard when I see myself falling short of some of these targets. And I realized in this conversation with Sean that I hold this impossible version of a man that I don't even have a real life example for who I should be every single day. At 35 years old, I should have all of this put together. Just raise your hand for a minute. Is that you? Are you the same man as me? Where you compare yourself against this fantasy avatar of a man that you've never even met. Maybe you've never even seen before. Certainly hasn't been modeled for you. Probably didn't get to see that in your father or your uncles. Maybe you have. And if you did, please send me a message because I'd love to meet the man who's hit every single one of those marks. How do you do it? How do you manage to hit every single part? Because for me, I always feel like I'm running from one thing to the next, aiming to be the best father and most present father I can and making time to still be really present and available and loving and intimate and romantic and kind to my partner. And also making room for my mission, my unique purpose on this planet to give back to the men of this world and the communities 7 generations into the future. And that's just 3. I also want to have financial stability and abundance. I also want to be mentally and physically fit. And there's 24 hours in a day for every single one of us. So how do I do it? I don't know. But what really became apparent to me is that I cannot do myself service. I'm not helping myself out by holding this fantasy standard as the way that I should be, as though it's something, it's the level that so many other people are operating at. When in reality, many of us are hitting some of these marks, but there's always ones for us to work on. And I love that. That's what growth is all about. If I get satisfied with who I am at any point in my journey, then chances are I might just fall back and lock it in, dig my heels in, get comfortable and say, hey, that's good enough. But I know that if you're listening to this, you're probably not that person. You're probably not somebody who settles with enough, who's not satisfied with just hitting the status quo. So let's have those high targets. Let's have and set those high standards for what it means to be a father, to be a husband, to be a mentor, a teacher, a guide, to be somebody who gives back to our communities and takes care of our families, who are good, strong, solid, durable, sturdy, reliable men that you can depend on. And also remember that none of us are perfect. We are all just works in progress. And we will all always be progressing towards that high mark that we set for what it looks like to be a man on this planet. Grace and ambition. How do we hold both? I'm still figuring it out. And if you know some man out there who hits all of those marks, send me a message. I want to meet him. I've got a lot of questions. And in the meantime, until any of us become that man or find out what it takes to be that man, let's just keep pushing ourselves while still having the grace and the kindness with ourselves to understand we don't have to have it all figured out right now. So if this message hits, please make sure you share it up, send it to somebody else who needs to hear it right now, especially those guys out there who are really hard on themselves, those perfectionists just like me. Please send it their way because you never know when this message is going to make the difference for somebody. And make sure you tune in next week for another Monday Morning Meditations. Peace.